Today we will be discussing something that we receive a number of inquiries for, which is simply how to file for bankruptcy and what to be aware of. What even is bankruptcy? A more common question than you might think. And also, is bankruptcy really the right way forward? And so what we would recommend as a first step before even considering bankruptcy is actually speaking to a debt advisor or someone like ourselves, just to understand the options available to you. It may be that you could instead file or enter into debt arrangements with your lender. It might be that you could look at an individual voluntary agreement, or another alternative, and that might suit your situation better than actually declaring bankruptcy. However, if declaring bankruptcy is the only way forward, it's important that you understand what it actually means, and what it will entail for you. So bankruptcy generally lasts 12 months. It does allow for certain debts to be written off, but not all debts to be written off. Things like social fund loans, student loans, child maintenance arrears, or fraudulently obtained debts. Those sorts of debts, unfortunately, would not be written off with a bankruptcy petition or filing for bankruptcy. And so it's good to bear that in mind if one of those or many of those is the reason for you seeking bankruptcy. It does prevent contact from creditors directly. They would need to go through the trustee in charge of handling your estate in this matter, and some of your assets may be sold to settle some of your debts. So assets related to how you actually earn an income, they might not be. An easy analogy is that of a carpenter. To take away their woodworking tools would not generally be what was done, and so if you can transfer that sort of example to your situation, that would be a good way forwards. How do you apply? Well, without getting too complicated, you can go to gov.uk and you'll find a page that looks something like this, although it doesn't quite fit into my screen here. But basically, you'll have a look at something like this, which would show you, you click here, and then you'll be asked to answer a few questions. You'll create an account, and that would be the first step in applying for bankruptcy. They even give you a bit of guidance on what documents are required. All right, so some of the documents that you would need to include and that you would no doubt see once clicking on that link would be information regarding the debts that you owe, your employment or income, how it's derived, how you're obtaining it, how much, if you have a pension, your bank accounts, any assets that you have, and any outgoings. You may also be required to include a letter from a bailiff or a debt collector or an official agent that you've received up until that point. And once you've applied, an official adjudicator who works for the insolvency service will be assigned to your case. They'll review the details and then determine whether or not you would be made bankrupt, which would typically take 28 days. So, as we might have mentioned earlier, nothing in life is free. It does in fact cost something to go bankrupt. Now, currently, at the time of posting this video, that amount is £680, which, as someone going bankrupt, you might not be able to afford. If that's the case, you can pay it off in installments. And that would generally constitute the cost, unless you're using a broker or an advisor of some kind. Once you have been declared bankrupt, an official receiver will be appointed to your case. Creditors will need to make formal claims to the trustee of your estate. Most debts are typically written off after a year. And the last thing to take note of is that your credit rating will be affected. And obviously it will be affected quite negatively. The fact that you have been bankrupt will be on your record forever. Some people believe it's removed after 6 years, but generally a record of it does exist somewhere, and it can affect any applications for credit that you make going forward. It's also important to note that while you are under bankruptcy, you will not be able to apply for credit of more than £500. And so it can be quite restrictive in that sense as well. Now, as we mentioned earlier, being declared bankrupt might not be the right move for you. So if there's no realistic way of paying off your debts and you have got a few assets that could be used to settle a portion of your debts, then it might not be the best if you are a home owner. The reason for that being that if there is equity in your home may need to be sold to settle your debts, and so you would lose your home and need to find some sort of alternative accommodation, as well as if you are currently a tenant, your landlord may, becoming aware of your bankruptcy, seek to evict you for rent arrears. And then finally, if you don't want to do it yourself, it may be that somebody else does. The minimum that someone else could seek to bankrupt you for would be if you owe them more than £5,000. This process is a little bit different, and it's rarely used by individuals to whom you owe money. However, it is an option, and in some cases it is preferable to people to go that route rather than have a claim form put up against them. And that concludes our video. Obviously that was very high level, broad strokes on the process of going bankrupt. A couple of things to look out for. However, if you are looking for a little bit more detailed assistance, please do feel free to reach out to Pearl Lemon Legal. We'd be more than happy to help.